Hope, thanks so much for taking the time today to walk us through a number of things, including an introduction of yourself, a discussion associated with what Kraus-Anderson and your group specifically are doing today for your clients, and in addition, of course, how we from an Aclaimant perspective are helping you. So thanks for the time. Let's begin with the first topic today, which is an introduction of yourself. Would love for you to cover your career a bit and how we got to what you're doing today, if that works.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope Trepanier, Kraus-Anderson Insurance. I have been here since 2009, and my current role is Vice President of Client Experience. I grew up, spent my entire career in the agency claims department. And over the course of that time, a very specialized claims consulting group called Comptrol, and where we're focusing strictly on the workers' compensation claims and how we can help employers manage those claims, prevent those claims. There's some loss prevention services we also have. We also have HR services that we will deploy for prevention. And then how that ties into the financing mechanism of those claims, which is the experience mod, and of course, program design of their workers' compensation program.
Great, brilliant. And how long have you been with Kraus-Anderson overall?
16 years. So
Great,
just past 16. Yes, 20 years in insurance and 16 years here at Kraus-Anderson.
perfect. When you began to think about the need for a risk management information system solution, what were your goals when that project started?
Yeah, so I'm going to take you a little ways back in our history.
Okay.
Back in 2009, we actually built a proprietary portal, which was unheard of at the time.
Mm.
Certainly not at the agency level. Very few carriers even allowed employers or insureds to file claims directly on a website. You were still emailing those in, faxing those in. We built our own portal within the agency and maintained that until 2014. And then we rebuilt that onto a SharePoint platform in 2014. And really, what we were trying to do is we were trying to accomplish a couple of things with that portal. One was the filing of workers' compensation claims. Two, how that claim then tied to their OSHA logs, so the OSHA 300 and 300A, but also all of the documentation that was in support of that claim, along with the work comp program in its entirety. So we were housing things like employee handbooks, safety policies, experience mod worksheets, their actual physical policies and audits. So we were trying to do multiple things with this portal. And again, that was, well before a time that we had portals like we do now with the insurance companies and things like that. Everything's got an app now.
Right.
So that was in 2014, and then in 2022, we were notified that Microsoft was no longer going to support that.
Mm.
Version of SharePoint. And so we needed to make a decision about whether or not we were going to try to rebuild it again on a different platform. And I think ultimately what we decided was we're not IT people.
Right, exactly.
we were like pioneers at the time of having this portal, but now technology and insurance companies and lots of other platforms had really caught up to what we were doing. And so it no longer made sense for us to try to build that on our own, maintain it, and then also build upon it. Now we have things like artificial intelligence that is now being brought into this technology. So that was the biggest need of the time, and how we started our due diligence process, really, of vetting several different companies to figure out how do we support this need that we have. We don't want to lose any functionality,
Right.
but we know that we don't want to be responsible for building and maintaining anymore.
Absolutely. Makes perfect sense. And so many organizations, of course, are good at many things. And what you realize at times is that they're valuable things you want to provide to your clients, but at the same time, where is the line associated with what's appropriate? Meaning,
Yes.
always a perfect example, right? From a technology perspective, where do you build, and where do you partner?
Yes.
So it sounds like for a number of reasons, including one that was a Microsoft decision as opposed to a Kraus-Anderson decision, you decided
Mhm.
that you needed to find a partner. So you wanted to find a partner, and I would imagine that you went through and created a list of features and capabilities that you had today and more that you wanted
Yes.
to assess a number of organizations to see who your best partner might be. So you chose Acclaimant, which we're
Yes.
pleased with,
Yes.
and started to build a solution that mimicked what you had before and more. So can you talk a bit about what that solution looked like post-implementation?
Mhm. Yeah. And actually, if I can I take a couple steps back before we get into
Please.
that, just about our
Absolutely.
process, because I do think it's really important for people to go through a due diligence process with technology for sure. Um, so I want to be clear, we went through a due diligence of approximately 1 year,
Oh, wow.
and we vetted at least five different platform companies.
Mhm.
And actually, Acclaimant was the very last company that we spoke with. When we met with the sales team, we had already, in the back of our minds, made a decision on another platform. And we thought, okay, we still need to do our due diligence. There's no harm in just talking to one more.
One last
And
conversation.
it changed everything for
Amazing.
us. I think so I want to talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about the why we chose
Please.
Acclaimant over the others.
That would
To
be
your
brilliant.
point, exactly, we were trying to we wanted to have a platform that uh, had the same functionality as what we previously had. We didn't want to take away anything, but also maybe have some additional enhancements that we didn't have. Again, to your point, because we're not IT people. Um, so bringing even a greater value to our clients beyond what they currently have, because change is hard, right? Especially
Right.
with technology, nobody likes change. And so, how could we soften that by giving them additional features? And Acclaimant really checked all of those boxes. We actually pushed out our implementation because we had a number of meetings with the Acclaimant team and our senior leadership team, simply because we were so impressed. We brought in other sales team members as well, which we hadn't done with the other vendors that we had looked at. So I'm sorry I wanted to go back because I think that's really important. I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. So I'm sorry, can you restate your question? Oh, post
Indeed.
implementation, I believe was about
I
that.
may ask one additional question and then I'll restate the prior question. But in terms of what components you found to be so compelling that you pulled in team members you'd not previously pulled in, do you recall what those capabilities were?
Yes. The very first thing was the current portal that we had and the other vendors that we had looked at, the ability to file claims beyond workers' compensation.
Mm,
Now that comes into I can file claims under property, general liability, and auto. And I can
interesting.
house all of that within one platform that
Yes.
is client facing. That was a huge um, perk.
Yeah.
Something that we saw a lot of value in, and we continue to see the value in,
Right.
because it took our platform of really focused on workers' compensation. Of course, our claims team does help manage all lines of coverage, but the platform, the portal itself, was really geared just towards workers' compensation. And from my perspective, I think we were missing an opportunity for those clients that maybe didn't have a work comp need. Maybe it was
Mm,
general liability. Maybe they have a large fleet and it's auto that is their issue and not their workers' compensation. So now we just opened up the door for bringing a greater value to more clients just in that one functionality.
tremendous. Tremendous. Makes perfect sense. And, back to your original point associated with examining what you're doing with the portal previously, and
Mm.
then looking for the right partner who could take over the responsibility from an IT perspective associated with the things the IT team was previously working on. And then now you're in a position where you say, well, the scope can increase beyond work comp
Yes.
beginning to incorporate these other lines of business. And so when you begin implementation, those are the goals. You mentioned work comp, being able to intake those incidents, OSHA support
Yes.
related to those incidents and claims, and then additional lines of business that allowed you to expand the scope. So if we can focus a little bit on what you ended up with at implementation and then how it's grown since then, would love to dive a bit deeper into that as well.
Yeah. So we had a very short amount of time in which we needed to implement this. We signed our agreements and shook hands in February of 2023. And by middle of May 2023, we were fully implemented.
Brilliant.
And to me, this is a pretty, a huge feat, simply because we were taking information from our prior portal that needed to be, migrated into the new system so it wasn't just empty, and build out all of our clients. We have somewhere, just over 100 clients that are currently using the system that continuously grows. So it was a huge undertaking, and so the support team at Acclaimant was absolutely amazing. Um, Following implementation, we actually, my team, the claims team here, we did all of our own training for Acclaimant. We did our own recordings, to train new users, or to retrain users.
Mhm.
And we've continued to, take that on as our responsibility. Um, but I think one of the biggest things beyond implementation, it wasn't as though we've got you implemented, see you when it's time to pay the next bill. We've had a coordinator, I forget what's the title, success,
Right.
um,
Customer success.
customer success, thank you,
Yeah.
person every step of the way since implementation, which I think is incredibly valuable,
Yeah.
especially once you get implemented and then you actually have to start living in that system. Just like anybody, you're going to have questions, you're going to run into issues, and I knew that I always had time with somebody at a claimant. If it was something that was urgent, I could always reach out to support or to get an individual, but it was really helpful just to know that I had face-to-face time with someone at a claimant. I think we started meeting every other week, right after our implementation. And here we are, 2.5 years later, and I still have somebody assigned to our account, and I still meet with him every month.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And then to your point, not only do you have questions and need to better understand the way in which you're using the application, but I would imagine that your CX team also supports the evolution of the things you're doing, as well
Yeah,
as the evolution of the application simultaneously during that process to make sure you're trained in understanding the new aspects that are being released and the growth on both sides.
correct. Yes, I always feel like a very valued partner to a claimant. One of the things that I think that really drew us to you all was your, this entrepreneurial spirit. And, we've been around for over 75 years, but we still feel like we're still kind of kids,
Right.
and we're still growing up and figuring out what we want to be when we grow up. And we like to have partners who are in that same place.
Right.
I feel like whenever I have a question or a suggestion, that those things are taken very seriously. It doesn't go into like, here's a survey that I get once a year, and tell us all these features, and then you never hear anything again, right?
Yeah.
I've never felt that way. I always feel like a very valued partner. I
Brilliant.
know that wasn't exactly part of your question there, but I wanted to, I think that's, again, I think it's important as you choose partners in business that you feel like a valued partner.
Indeed. And you are such a valuable partner to us in terms of the way in which you think about the manner in which the application is being used, the value that your customers are getting from the solution overall, and the fact that the right partnership, I believe, on both sides, there each partner challenges the other. We challenge
Yes.
you to make sure that your customers are realizing the value associated with all the features that exist within the application, the things we're continuously developing and releasing, and you challenge us by saying, we'd like to see the application evolve in these areas. So that's the right partnership. We appreciate your partnership and the time you spend with us in that regard. Always extremely valuable. Would love to get a sense of the future. And as you begin to look at 2026 and beyond, the things that you're thinking about and the organization overall is thinking about doing, and then how we can help.
Yes. So looking into 2026, Kraus-Anderson Insurance, we're going through kind of our initial step into our own strategic plan with a hyper focus on the client experience. And we've already started to implement some additional service models within our agency. But one of them is going to continuously be access to information. So we talk about driven decisions.
Mm.
And this is a feature no Aclaimant, you currently have with dashboards and things like that. And then, of course, the use of AI to create those efficiencies to help you maybe even make better decisions based on the information that you have. So that is something that, again, with the focus being on the client and their experience, keeping the system simple like it is now, user friendly, but also having access to additional features because data is so important. As you know, the insurance world has lots and lots of data.
Right.
They have not figured out like how to disseminate that information very well, right? And so as an insurance agent, there's a challenge. One of that, I can get a dump of data from a carrier on a particular client or a book of business. But let's say I have a client who has one carrier on their work comp. They've got a different carrier on their GL and property, and their pollution and umbrella are with somebody else. Now I
Mhm.
have to aggregate all of that information on my own. And loss runs all look different. They offer different information within those loss runs. And I think this is where this value to a client, having a single source of truth when
Yes.
it comes to their claims, regardless of their carrier. And if maybe they were with carrier X for 20 years, but this year we need to make a move because, for whatever reason, we need to move them to a different carrier. That information is not lost. Carriers are not great about sharing that information once an insured leaves, right?
Yes.
Me as the agent, I can get it. But clients will lose access to the carrier websites if they leave. And so again, the ability to have a single source where I can see my claims, but then also being able to build those custom dashboards, and really listening to the client as far as what concerns them in their losses. What do they want to focus on? I can tell you all day long, here are the things that I see. And there's a million different reasons they make a business decision to focus on something else. So having all of this data is so incredibly important, not just for us as an agent, but to the client, who is the ultimate end user.
Love it. Just tremendous. Well, we sincerely appreciate the time. As
Yes,
stated, we sincerely appreciate the partnership, the things that we've been able to do together. We're so proud that we've grown together, we've
yes,
continued to
mhm,
evolve, and
yes,
are looking forward to the future and all the things that we'll continue to do in terms of being able to meet each other's needs. So we
yes,
sincerely appreciate the time today, Hope, and look forward
yes.
to our next conversation.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Talk soon. Take care.
You too.